Am I on? Is this thing on?
Jazz Sinclair's in the chat.
Jazz Sinclair, is this thing on?
Uh-oh. Ole! Ole!
It's Jazz Sinclair time. It's Jazz Sinclair time. It's Jesse Jasmine time. It's Jazz Sinclair time. La da 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 la da 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 la da 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 la da 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 da.
Is this on? Is this on? Are we on? Are we on? I don't know. Am I here? Are we on? This way? You should be dancing, yeah. You should be dancing, yeah.
Am I on? Jazz? Jazz.
So Jazz came back for a nanosecond. Welcome back, Jazz. Sorta. Jazz.
Is this thing on? Is this thing working?
Jazz was talking about vampires. He was talking. I don't know how you said it with a straight face. I just wanted to say, hey Jazz, your mother. It's Jazz Sinclair time. It's Jazz Sinclair time.
Hi everybody, Jazz Sinclair in the dark. I'm sorry, but it's getting late in the year. It's October. So this is bizarre. If you go by the Julian calendar, there's January, February, March, June, July, August, September, October, November, December, because there's 10 months. So April and May just were made up, which I think is fucking hysterical. Of course, they put Mother's Day in May. Whatever that means. April Fools, get it? So, kids, I got thinking about something, and I kind of inadvertently got reintroduced to it, watching all this Las Vegas nonsense, watching all the hoaxes go on in front of our eyes, and they're not even any good at it. They really are not even any good at it. We've spent our lives watching cartoon imagery from NASA, cartoon imagery from Hollywood, and I'm going to re-up I'm going to re-up my video You Live in Hollywood, because for anyone who hasn't seen it, yes, it's 40 minutes long. The problem is it was a 5-segment sucker that I stitched together, so you know it can't help but be that long. But on that theme, and a friend of mine inadvertently reminded me about that one. I said, well, yeah. So they watched it, and are in the middle of watching it. It's 40 minutes long, and I am sorry, Jazz never goes on for 40 minutes, but that was a bunch stitched together. You get the idea. All right. So I'm watching all this stuff go on, and it occurred to me, wait a minute, because I have seen the absolutely comedic, at this point, footage of the Gulf War. And who was the reporter guy? I can't remember his name. He had a mustache. Here, coming from you from Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, and there's stuff going off in the background, and he's in the middle of palm trees and stuff. And if you watch the footage now, you can see he's on a set, right? Of course. He never left the TV studio, ever. So I got thinking about all this. Do they go out in public? Of course they do. Do they stage things? Of course they do. But for the most part, everything you know is from a Hollywood set. And this got me to thinking. And now I'm going to go ahead and say it out loud. See how you feel about this one, guys. Well, first of all, it's my opinion that there was no George Washington. There was no John Adams, Thomas Jefferson. These were all ideas with names stuck on them. But think about this. If you were in any way actually threatened by another nation with nuclear missiles, which we know ICBMs are impossible because that would require them to go out into space and come back down. So there are no ICBMs, intercontinental ballistic missiles, for those of you in Bayonne, New Jersey. We know they don't exist. So the Soviet Union was never a threat to us because they can't get to us. So you think about all this stuff and how it was all woven together in Hollywood. Now, I'm going to say this by using an example. There's a guy who was incredibly famous worldwide throughout the entire 20th century, who absolutely, totally represented the United States of America, the American ideal, everything American. His name was Marion Morrison. He never served in the military. He never went to war. He never fought a cowboy and Indian style thing out in the Wild West. None of this ever happened. He was a product of Hollywood, and nobody knows his real name. And I'm talking, of course, about John Wayne. John Wayne represents America. I mean, you think of John Wayne, you think of cowboys and Indians, you think of the good guy, whatever that means. You think of the Stars and Stripes, you think of World War II. You think he didn't do any of that stuff. He's an actor named Marion Morrison, whose stage name was John Wayne. Now, was this a real person? Yeah, Marion Morrison was a real person. Was he whatever he said he was? No. I mean, whatever he played? No. Now, this led me even further down this ridiculous path, which you're going to, unfortunately, follow down along with me. Here's what I'm getting to. There was no George Washington. There was no Abraham Lincoln. I'm going to take this further, kids. Let me get back to what I just said. If you are in a nuclear war area, a nuclear war scare, and you had a city of statues where the most powerful person in the world, in your nation, lived, and it's a landmark, historical everything, easily identifiable by not just people walking by, but your enemy, who could, in real life, in the fake media life, hit you with a bomb. Would you live there? If any of this was real, would you live in the White House? Well, they've got underground bunkers. No, they don't. There was no George Washington. There was no Abraham Lincoln. There was no Calvin Coolidge. There was no Teddy Roosevelt. Guys, now this is going to get difficult for all of you to swallow because it's difficult for me to swallow. But it's logical. There was no John F. Kennedy. There was no Dwight D. Eisenhower. There was no Roosevelt. There was no Richard Nixon. There was no Ronald Reagan. There was no Bill Clinton. There was no George Bush, and there was no Barack Obama. There is no Donald Trump. Are these actual people? Yeah. Where are they? Do you think? I'm looking back on the 20th century and the 21st century, where they're giving, they're in. Well, it's well documented that they were in these places at these times. No, that's not true at all. That is not true at all. Well, it's what. The State of the Union is obviously coming right from where? Do you think the President of the United States lives in the White House? I say the White House is empty. I think it's a fucking museum. Well, what about Congress? What about them? They're actors that show up for their job. What actor who's getting paid money doesn't show up for his job? Duh. They're showing up for their jobs. They're reading their lines. Are they in that building? No, they're not. On rare occasion, they'll show up there on days that the public is allowed. But, you see C-SPAN, you see these guys talking to an empty auditorium. Where are they? I'll tell you what, Richard Nixon, whatever his name really was, the actor who played Richard Nixon was a real person. But the entire Nixon era, including Henry Kissinger and everybody else, this was done on a set in Hollywood. Every speech that Ronald Reagan ever gave, shining city on the hill, was done in Hollywood. Nobody set foot in Washington, D.C. Are there security running around? Yeah. Are they real? Some are. Most aren't. Just like any hoax crisis actor situation where you've got, buffoons dressed as cops who don't know what the fuck they're doing, mingled in with real cops who do know what the fuck they're doing. Of course. Donald Trump is not in the White House. There's nobody in the White House. They're on a Hollywood set, and the entire thing is driven by the idea. Well, I mean, they run this, they run that, and just, you don't believe me? Go look at a cop. He works for the Department of Justice, who works for the... Yeah, he thinks he does, yeah. That doesn't mean that the Supreme Court actually meets in that building. That doesn't mean that any of these people are actually where they say they are. First of all, we all know about body doubles. These people are so so mission critical, they've got body triples and quadruples and quintuples. There are probably 10 people who look exactly like Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton, and who the hell knows? But I can tell you for sure, because it rings true. It makes logical sense. They would not be in a place that was going to get attacked in any way. Was George Bush a real president? No, because there is no president. There is no authority over you. It's all made up. It's all made up. George Bush, was he sitting in a classroom during 9/11? I don't know. That's what they said. Was the classroom in New York City? Fuck no. I don't care what little thing they had going on in the studio. That's bullshit. It's a Hollywood production. There is no living or dead person who ever lived in the White House. It's a museum. It was built and designed to be a museum. I mean, the show goes on, of course. There are lights going on. You would think there's people there, but we're dealing with Hollywood magic here. We're not dealing with reality. I mean, I got to tell you this. I've told you this before. When I was a very little boy, it was the 1970s, and I was my parents dragged me to this ultra fancy dinner party that a friend of a friend of a friend was, or no, it was at some country club where my dad had played golf or something. Anyway, that night there happened to be a big dinner party there, and who did I bump into? Buzz Aldrin. Well, I mean, it's not crazy because we were born in the same town. He's from Montclair, New Jersey, just like me. And he went to Montclair High School, and he went to Montclair State College. So it's not, any big... But did I meet the person known as Buzz Aldrin? Did I meet Edwin Aldrin? Yeah, I shook his hand when I was about 4. Does that mean he went to the moon? No. Obviously not. Does it mean he didn't exist? No, he existed. I mean, the actor who plays Buzz Aldrin exists. And the actor who played Richard Nixon did exist. Perhaps still does. We don't know. Jimmy Carter was not a real person. Everything he did, aside from going out and campaigning in public, which is what they do, never spent one day in the White House. Yes, I've seen it. No, you saw a Hollywood set. I'm just putting that out there. There is no actual person in Washington, D.C. doing any damn thing. The people who work for these people show up for their jobs. Sure, the buses and the trains and the cars, they're all loaded with people. But what are they doing? Who are they reporting to? An empty office. There's nobody there. It's in Hollywood. Every single time you saw Bill Clinton on television talking from the Oval Office, he was in Burbank, California, in Hollywood, sitting on a set pretending that it was made to look exactly like the Oval Office. Well, what does the Oval Office look like? It looks like what we're told it looks like. They can make it look like anything they want. They made it up. They made it look oval. I mean, the entire thing is amazing when you think about it. There is no Kremlin in Russia. I mean, there's a building called that. Yeah, it's a museum, but does anybody actually meet there? Hell no. No. Vladimir Putin is a highly paid actor. End of story. He says his lines. He does his thing. So who runs this joint? Nobody. Stop it. Get over it. Nobody runs this place. You run this place. I run this place. I run me. No one has ever bothered me. Have I been in trouble with the law before? Yeah. I got busted drunk driving when I was 17, 18. Yeah, I've gotten traffic tickets. I've never done anything illegal, but, you know, do they exist? Yeah. Do they carry weapons? Yeah. Do they even know what they're doing? No, they're reporting to an idea like everyone else is reporting simply to an idea. There's nobody home, kids. I submit to you that if you actually take apart the footage, I mean, I don't know this, I'm just saying this, but I submit to you that if you took apart the footage of every broadcast that's ever come from the White House, that you could, in fact, say it was on a Hollywood set, except for special occasions when they actually fly out on and film it on location. Other than that, Ronald Reagan and Gerald Ford and everybody else spent their entire terms of office in Hollywood on a set. I'm just putting that out there. And I want to say this, conspiracy mystic, fly like an eagle. That was a really cool story, and it blends with Little Bird's story. Peace, Little Bird. And what's interesting to me about that particular thing is that back when I lived in the science fiction world, I was, who's got my lighter? Oh, I got my lighter. Peaches, give me back my lighter. Never mind, I found it. Back when I was living on the science fiction world, there was a guy who would, he was a hypnotherapist, and he dedicated basically his adult life, and whether it was bullshit or not, to hypnotizing and trying to understand, doing hypnotherapy on people who had been abducted. And across the board, the stories were all the same. And, you know, I was very interested back then, when I lived on a spinning ball, because those of us who are flat earthers, those of us who are real, true, I'm getting tired of the term flat earthers, those of us who are really, truly awakening, we're also extremely heavily into the science fiction aspect of the situation. So therefore, when we're confronted with someone who says, read this, I've known all about space facts my whole life, and everything else sci-fi. Where the hell was I going with this? Oh yeah, he has some fascinating things to say about the gray aliens and the people who encountered them and how they had the same thing. And he didn't say they're from other worlds. He didn't say they're from. He just said he does not understand the phenomena he's looking at. Whatever the phenomena was, they were, for some strange reason, people who were abducted, and they all had the same thing. You know, instead of opening the window and being taken out in the ship, they went through the wall. And now none of them had to say that, but under hypnosis or whatever, they were telling, you know, essentially assuming the truth. And they all had the encounters were strange. And what his problem was, not that there's something wrong here, but his problem was the exact identical story was repeated by people who would have no idea, no way to corroborate each other's stories, and they were all ashamed, and they were all not wanting to go public with it. And the question I have is, at this point, since we know we're not on a spinning ball, and all bets are off as to where we are and what's going on, after hearing your story, Conspiracy Mystic, and yours, Little Bird, something may in fact be going on. These things have been around forever. Leprechauns, fairies, the wee folk, the little people, they've been around forever. And in the 20th century, they got named aliens. You know, but they've been here with us forever. And they've been doing very strange things to us forever. And that does not tell me what they are, though, but we do know they're not from outer space. So that's a tremendous narrowing of the gap, because we just took away billions and trillions of miles from these people. So they're either from across the pond or they're interdimensional. But I'm not dismissing the fact that they are around us, because everything that is around us, to our newly awakened senses, is in fact brand new. What the hell did you say, Jazz? I don't know, but I am going to put up the You're in Hollywood video again. I'm going to re-up it for everybody who did not catch it to go in conjunction with this, because I don't believe for 1 second that I even turned the camera on. So I better sign off now. I don't believe for 1 second that anyone lives in the White House, or anyone ever did. I think the damn thing is empty. I think the whole city of Washington, as far as official buildings, and that goes for across the world, none of these places have anybody in them. Everything was done in Hollywood, everything. Donald Trump isn't in the White House, he's in Hollywood, having a party. Alright guys, I love you all. I'm not back yet, don't know when I'm coming back. But I may come back and I may not, I don't know, it's up to me. I love you all, I'll see you later, bye. Oh yeah, this was Jazz Sinclair, quick check-in. La da 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 da. Alright, love you all, bye.
Oh,
Hi,
so
Jazz.
people are.
Is Jazz in there right now? Do I see him?
Yeah.
Hi.
Who's Jazz Sinclair?
Wait, what?